Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper, et in saecula saeculorum. Amen.
Hi, this is Gustavo Zayas. Welcome to the Sacredmusicguy channel. I'd like to talk to you today about sacred music. I'm going to begin to address certain issues that you will encounter if you are a Catholic music director. My goal with the next few videos is to lay the groundwork for addressing one of the problems in church music today. I think it's impossible to be a Catholic music director and not have experienced division and conflict over church music. I'm going to let you know where I'm coming from and where I think you should be. Some of what I say will be my opinion, sure, but most of what I say will be what the church states, implies, desires, or requires. I have about 10 minutes, so let's get right to it. Let's talk about Gregorian chant. We cannot have a serious conversation about sacred music at all without talking about Gregorian chant. There's a lot that can be said about it, and many other YouTube channels do say a lot about it. On this channel, I want to focus on the minimum that music directors need to know and what they need to be able to do. The problem, as I see it, is that Gregorian chant is widely neglected and not given its proper place in the liturgy. Most Catholic music directors know very little about Gregorian chant, have virtually no practical experience with it, and no authentic appreciation for it, except to maybe play a CD during a prayer session. So they cannot promote it when there's openness to it. They cannot defend it when it's attacked, and they cannot execute it effectively when they're required to perform it. This is an injustice, as you will see. It's a big problem, and it's unfortunate if you find yourself saying, yeah, that's how it is at my parish. I hope to give you some tools that will help you address those issues if you have them. Today, we'll simply define Gregorian chant, not in a comprehensive way, but at a basic level so you can establish that first layer of knowledge and be able to competently answer simple questions. The word chant is defined by Merriam-Webster as a song, also plain song, a rhythmic monotonous utterance or song, and a composition for chanting. You can find links to the definitions in the description. If we look at the definition of plain song, we find a monophonic, rhythmically free liturgical chant of any of the various Christian rites. So it seems chant may be any song, but plain chant is specifically Christian liturgical chant. Then there's the word plain chant, which redirects you to plain song. Personally, I don't really know many people who use the word plain song or plain chant. I simply use the word chant. That's what I call liturgical chant. Now, there are secular chants, such as those at sporting events, or you might recognize other types of chants like tribal war chants. Clearly, the difference is that liturgical chants are comprised of the Psalms, sacred scripture, and composed prayers for the liturgy, or the Mass. Let's talk about the difference between monotonous and monophonic. The word monotonous is the more generic term, so it covers many more types of chants. The word monophonic is more specific, and I believe that's why it's used to define liturgical chant. Monotone, from monotonous, is comprised of mono and tone, meaning a single note. The effect is kind of like a drone, where there's not much change. Monotone is often used to negatively describe a chant. It's usually understood to mean or to be synonymous with the word boring. Okay, monophonic is comprised of mono and to phonate or phonation, meaning to produce vocal sounds. The effect is to sing in one way or to sing in unison. The implication is that, number one, there's a melody that changes from just one note, and number two, that everyone should be trying to sing according to a fixed pitch or scale. This is a more academic term, surely, monophonic, and it's mostly neutral. Another academic musical term often associated with chant is monody, which means an ode sung by one voice, and an elegy or dirge performed by one person. We can see that this is inherently unison singing. So we can say that chant means singing in one voice. We can also say that secular chants differ from liturgical chants in their texts, as well as how strictly the unison singing is expected and practiced. Now let's talk about the difference between rhythmic and rhythmically free. Those terms do not contradict each other. All chant is rhythmic, meaning that when a group is singing a text, they generally intend to sing the same thing at the same time, especially if the text already has specific rhythms for certain words assigned to them, even specific rhythms for syllables of words. There is meter, or a fixed metrical pattern, which we apply to singing as well as speaking. This means we come up with a pattern to speak or sing a phrase in a certain way, and then we speak or sing the next phrase using the exact same pattern that we used the first time. This is how we get poetry, how we get things to rhyme. This is also how we get rhythm. Okay, so if a chant is sung following a meter, it's called rhythmic. Chant is also rhythmically free in the sense that the meter of each chant is not necessarily always fixed or repetitive or symmetrical. Liturgical chant is often based on sacred scripture and may be set to an asymmetrical meter. Nowhere does it say that it has to be fixed into one meter or boxed in. Many liturgical chants are free of the confines of meter, hence they are rhythmically free. So we can say that some chant follows fixed meter and some chant follows asymmetrical meter, or the free grouping of texts. Both are still expressions of rhythm. It's important you know this in case anyone tells you that chant has no rhythm. That's false. Moving on. Gregorian chant is named after Pope Gregory I, also known as St. Gregory the Great. He made reforms to the liturgy during his pontificate. One of his major reforms was to unify the liturgy by assigning specific prayers and antiphons for the masses of the liturgical calendar. You may recognize these as the proper of the Mass. This reform was applied first to the sacramentary, which is similar to a missal, but contains only what the priest needs to say for a Mass. The reform was then applied to the antiphonary, which contains all the antiphons for the cantor or choir. Those sacramentaries and antiphonaries produced after the reform of Pope Gregory I were known as Gregorian sacramentaries and Gregorian antiphonaries. While St. Gregory the Great made these reforms, it would be a few centuries before they were more thoroughly imposed on the whole Catholic Church. Under Charlemagne, who also sought to unify the liturgy of the Church, under Charlemagne, Gregorian chant became normative, while other regional styles of chant, liturgical chant, became suppressed. Here we're talking about the compositional style. Even though maybe they used the same text, the style of composition was different, and Gregorian chant was the one that became dominant. Only a few dioceses were given the approval to keep their own distinct musical style for chant. For example, Ambrosian chant survived as part of the Ambrosian rite of the Catholic Church. This rite is used in Milan. So we can say that Gregorian chant is the repertory of chant, or the body of chant, that follows the calendar of Pope Gregory I, and which was imposed by Charlemagne as the dominant musical style in the Catholic Church. So, wrapping up, chant or plain song is monotonous and monophonic. It's rhythmic and rhythmically free. Gregorian chant became the dominant repertory of liturgical chant following the reforms of Gregory the Great and the rule of Charlemagne. Gregorian chant is the normative music of the Roman Rite of the Catholic Church. That's the short history. The problem right now is that for whatever reason, through a certain lack of knowledge or training or experience, Gregorian chant has fallen into disuse. This needs to be corrected. By learning this information, my hope is that you'll start to make yourself more capable of making that correction. Our next videos will cover chant theory, chant interpretation, music history, more music history anyway, and of course what the Church has to say about Gregorian chant and liturgical music. Stay tuned for more. If you found this presentation useful for you or your music ministry, please like, subscribe, and share. If you happen to be in Miami, Florida, please consider visiting the Cathedral of St. Mary. Until next time, this is your Sacred Music Guy. Keep it sacred.